Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of the School Committee of the Town of Foxborough. Today is January 25th, 2016. Apologize up front for suffering from a little cold, so I'll probably be a little quieter, and if I have to disappear to blow my nose, I'll ask the vice chair to take over. We've got a fair amount on the agenda tonight, but I think we might get a reward for good behavior at the end when we talk about our meeting next week. So we'll bring that up then. But tonight we're going to start, as always, with visitors, and then approval of minutes. And then our teaching and learning highlight tonight is around a positive coaching alliance with Ms. Caitlin Brown, the athletic director. We have an Eagle Scout project from Ken Eva regarding the Ahern YMCA path. We're then going to look at the proposed 2016-2017 Foxborough High School Program of Studies updates. And then we have the first reading of a policy JKAA, which is with regard to physical restraint of students. We then are going to make the decision on the 2016-2017 school calendar, and then we'll take up the FY17 budget public hearing and vote our recommendation on what we want to put forward for the coming year budget. We have to approve the FY17 capital improvement plan. We will then do a school committee vote on subcommittee appointments for upcoming teacher negotiations and educational assistant negotiations. We then will look at this year's district report card that Ms. Spinelli and Dr. Berdos have put together once again. We have a few donations that we're fortunate enough to accept, and then other matters. Do you have any visitors who want to be recognized? Seeing none, I want to welcome back Mrs. Lord, who's been away for a little while. And I also understand from the superintendent that, Melissa, you have some exciting news. And I know you have to leave early. Do you want to share with us your exciting news?
I got into my #1 college.
Yeah.
Which is?
James Madison University in Virginia.
James
That's awesome.
Lucky to have her
And I
on
went
that
to
campus.
college in Virginia, so I have something in common.
Exactly.
I went to law school in Virginia, so there.
Even better.
There's a lot of snow right now in Virginia.
Oh, I heard.
Sorry.
When did you find out, Melissa?
About like 3 or 4 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago? I don't
Did you
really know.
rip the envelope right open or just stare
It was
at
on the computer. I had to like
Some
go
are
through like their website and like I checked my status and they were like, oh, like congratulations.
Oh, they didn't send it via email? Oh.
It was so weird.
That is very strange. A lot of them have been coming email or the packages,
Exactly.
so which is new. The emails are new, but
Yeah, I had to like go to their like.
'cause we're waiting on
it was
one.
weird.
Okay,
An envelope is a paper thing they used to send notifications.
just in case, just clarify that
Yeah,
part.
I don't know if you've seen them as kids.
No, a lot
I have.
that
We
way.
used
That
in
way.
our day.
I think that's
Congratulations, dear. That's
Very
great.
exciting.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
happy
you.
for you.
Congratulations.
Very proud.
#1 choice. That's the best part.
I know.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, minutes. Regular meeting minutes, January 4th. And I think I saw we have a revised one on our tables.
Yes.
Couple little typos. Okay.
I had one tiny little thing. On the second page, under discussion of 2016-2017 capital improvement plan, the third line down where it says FHS turf field concession stand, I'd just like to change that to the Sam Burns Community Field concession stand because we refer to it as the Sam Burns Community Field concession stand later, that same paragraph, and then
That's
again
true.
on page 3. So I like to be consistent if we could just make that change.
Yep. Sam Burns Community Field concession stand. Great.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else? Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 4th,
As amended?
as amended.
Second? All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was my catch because I'm the one that changed this down the bottom and I didn't see it the second time in the paragraph. So just goes to show, takes many eyes. Didn't see that.
We are close to ready for the teaching and learning highlight, but I want to give Caitlin another minute or two. Did you have something you wanted to announce
I
while the
did.
high school staff is
One
here?
of our things I wanted to announce under other matters, but since we have our high school folks here, Mrs. Myers-Packler, the principal, actually Sue Carla's here, and Caitlin, so we have 3 people from the high school, and Dr. Einsel. I just wanted to announce while they're here, and so they know that we did it, that once again this year, Foxborough Public Schools was one of 425 school districts in the United States and Canada, honored as selected as part of the 6th annual Advanced Placement AP District Honor Roll. for increasing access to AP coursework while simultaneously maintaining or increasing the percentage of students earning scores of 3 or higher on the AP exams. So I think this is very significant this year that we are on that 2 years in a row. 425 school districts across the country. Last year, there were 547, and there are only 425 this year. So there are even fewer that made it this year, and we made it again this year. So I think that's a wonderful achievement, and congratulations to the high school and everything they're doing to expand access to AP while keeping the students' achievement on it very high. So I don't know if you wanted to say any further thoughts on it, but I think that's a terrific thing to mention while we have key people here who are responsible for the results. Pretty good.
So I take it that award is recognizing the AP course offerings that we make
Yeah.
available?
They take in-
the percentage of kids perhaps that are
Yes.
participating?
They take into consideration whether you're expanding your offerings, whether you're encouraging more kids to try AP courses, and whether they're maintaining a higher standard upon completion. Did I have it right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of all those things together.
Really a great testament to what we've asked, about being as instructionally challenging as we can, to be recognized for continuing to add AP classes and encourage students to participate in them. I think that is a nice tribute to the team, so thank you.
And the good teaching that makes sure that they get a 3 or above.
Good point, Pep.
That happens in the classroom.
It's 9 through 12 as well.
9 through 12.
And
It's that whole foundation, the whole way through until the students are actually sitting in those courses and eventually sitting for that exam.
It's great.
Proves great teaching and also a lot of dedication on the part of our students. We have some real hard workers here at Foxborough High School. So just going to throw that in.
Good point.
And the willingness of staff to take on the instruction for
Absolutely.
the courses, which is, it takes on a lot of their part too. They have to go for professional development. They're typically quite extensive, and I think that's a terrific achievement, and we're happy to be on it again this year.
It's great.
Terrific. So I'm going to give Caitlin another minute or two, because I know she's working hard.
It just appears to be slow.
Well, how about we rearrange the agenda just a little bit? Do we need Laureen for the program of studies?
No, she should be down. We were expecting closer to the 7:40 mark.
Well, what if we
We can
took
move
up our first reading of policy?
Well, we could do the Eagle Scout, because Ken Eva let me know over the weekend that over this weekend, he sent me an email saying that he has to participate. Well, he didn't realize he had a conflict. He is in the grade 8 and high school step-up concert tonight. So he just didn't realize his conflict. We had been in touch with him a few times. He said this evening was fine. So he's actually not going to be able to be here, so maybe we could spend a minute or two talking about that.
Great.
So as you know, many Eagle Scout projects choose to do something in the community. Sometimes they're on school property, sometimes they're on community property, and you tend to hear about the ones that are on school property. This really isn't on school property. The bulk of this work was on YMCA property. So it's on the path that goes between the Ahern and the YMCA that, as you know, if you've had students there, widely used by students to go back and forth from the middle school to the YMCA, both after school, during the school year, and in the summer when there's programs going on at both. So that path had become a little bit overgrown and had some stumps growing up in the middle, or little new trees or twigs, and so he had come to meet with Mr. Yukon and I back in November, and his Eagle Scout project was to clear the path, to maintain its original width, and Bill was kind enough to work with the DPW to provide ground cover mulch, and dumped a truck full of mulch for him to use on the YMCA side. So it wasn't a program that came to you for approval, because it's really YMCA property, but they were great. We met with them a couple times outside. They're very appreciative that the path was made a little bit safer, and they didn't have to do any work, but say this is great. So we want to thank Ken for his terrific project, making the pathway a little bit more nice and cushiony right now with all the mulch that they spread. So rather than reschedule, it was already on our agenda. When I found out this weekend, I told him we would just thank him, and I'd explained to everyone where he is tonight, so they couldn't be here to say thank you.
That's great. Nice job.
So thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
And all the other scouts that worked on it with him.
There was an enthusiastic group there that morning, including my 2 sons. So he had a nice group of boys helping out.
All right. I think we have something going. I think we're just access to the access was a little tricky tonight.
Network, so I have everything on that I had managed, so I had it saved in multiple locations, so it all works. So thank you.
Well, welcome,
for having me
Caitlin.
back. I know in I think it was the fall when I was here earlier, I mentioned that we were partnering with the Positive Coaching Alliance, and you had said you wanted a kind of an input about how it went. So I hope you got the books that we gave to the students. Yes, evaluating your game, which I think for me personally it's more than just the athletic fields. If you haven't had a chance to read it, please do, because it really it's a short read. It really talks about a lot of different areas. So, but I just brought some highlights. So, thank you, Sue Carl, for being my clicker. Yes. Are you ready? Yes, thank you. So we had an instructor. We had an instructor come in and to speak to it was over a Christmas vacation. It's hard to find a time when our student athletes are not busy. So we found that Christmas vacation was a great time to get. We had about 20 or 22 student athletes come, which is actually a great size to have. So what they kind of focus on is our student athletes to become triple impact competitors, which they make themselves better, their teammates better, and also honor the game. And that was the focus. So it was a 2-hour training session, and it was a lot of self-reflection on what they have liked in their fellow athletes, what they have seen, and also how their coaches and act, how maybe they see parents act or other competitors act. So it was a really nice afternoon to spend right between Christmas and the New Year. So one of the first things they talk about is kind of the elm tree of mastery, which is I think similar to what the district is doing already in the classroom in terms of effort, giving your best every time, and the growth mindset they mention in the book, and they continue to mention in athletics, that there's learning for improvement. No matter what happens on the scoreboard, you can always get yourself better, and kind of how to bounce back from mistakes. And I think that's probably the hardest thing a athlete or a student can do, is they focus on those mistakes. And the trainer said, if I can teach you one thing in this training, it's finding that way to bounce back from those mistakes. Whether it's picking a mantra, they talked about Doc Rivers and the Celtics, and they had the word, and I'm going to mispronounce it, when they went to Italy before, but picking whatever it is for your team to say, that happened, all right, move on. I'm sure Melissa's a goalie, which is a very tough position to be in. So it does take, that mentality to be able to kind of bounce back and kind of work on and trying to improve. So they spent a lot of time talking about that. And then the other thing was effort. And again, I brought in that growth mindset because I know that's something we're focusing on as a district as a whole, which something I believe in, is that you're always putting that effort to get yourself better. And instead of saying, I can't serve, it's how do I improve myself? What do I do to get better? Kind of put effort goals. And so they're specific, and they're effort goals, not necessarily I need to get in, 9 out of 10 of my free throws in. So that was, they discussed that with the student athletes as well. And then learning and improving, they talk about, watching, asking, and getting. So you watch your teammates. What do they do? If you see someone that you like out there, what do they do to get themselves better? Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask with their coaches or teammates about how to improve. And then if you can't get that from watching and asking, then go get that, whether it's lessons. And, and again, I see the correlation into the classroom. It's watching students, how they prepare for a test, asking teachers for help. And then also, if you're not getting it from the classroom, do you need to go out and get outside sources to help you with whatever subject area? So the correlation between the athletic field and the classroom was great. And then again, I talked a little bit about embracing mistakes. You can never be at your best if you're fearing a mistake. So do not be afraid to make mistakes. You play tentatively. And I would say that as a teacher, a former teacher, and that was the one thing that in teaching that you had to learn, is that you embrace that mistakes, because some of your best classes will happen when you take on a challenge. And so that's what, they encourage the kids to, and then to make that mistake ritual. If things don't go exactly the way you anticipated, how do you handle that? So, that was something they really focused on with the kids. And then these were all captains, so we talked to you a little bit about your role as a leader, and it's really, it could be for anyone, and it was funny, a few kids came up, and I won't name the sports, but said, could we do this for my sports team? You know, some of the things, they thought their whole entire team would get something out of it, besides just the leaders. We will be doing something for the coaches as well, but it's not a role, it's not a title, and it's really anyone who's committed to being successful. So again, you may not, some athlete may not get the role as captain, but it doesn't mean they're not a leader on that field. And it's not yelling at people. It's not telling people what to do. It's, you know, to encourage kids that it doesn't have to be rude and forceful. And they spoke about some of the leaders they remember. And I was fortunate enough to have many of them as students. And they liked them not because they were the best on the field, because they remembered everyone's name. That when they were a freshman, they got on the bus and cheered on the whole freshman team and wanted to know how they were doing. And I saw one of the individuals mentioned at a girls' basketball game, and I said, I just have to tell you, you were mentioned when we were doing this training as someone that they remembered. And she was a senior, and they were a freshman, and they remembered her. And I said, because you used to go and ask the freshman team how they did. And she started laughing. She's like, I did do that. And I said, well, that was the impact you made. It wasn't necessarily, she was a very incredible athlete and still playing at the collegiate level. But, you know, those were the memories that they made. So it was fun to listen to those stories. And then honoring the game, and this could be for anyone. They use a lot of acronyms, but roots, the rules. You know, you want to win the way the game is supposed to be played, and not by cheating or finding ways around the rules. Opponents, that a good opponent is a gift. You know, it shouldn't be, I want to avoid playing that team, that this is a gift that you have to play against the best of the best. Officials, sometimes they're going to make mistakes. I mean, I think we've all been, but that they bring fairness to the game, and they're supposed to be the equal in point, and you have to respect them even if they are wrong. Even if you know they're wrong, they are wrong, but you respect it. And teammates, you know, never do anything on and off the field to let your teammates down and your team down. And I think that really hit home for them too, because it's not just about what you do on the field, it's how you treat yourself, how you treat your body, your actions off the field that also help your teammates. And self, you are the foundation. And sometimes I think it's hard because, especially as student leaders, they move away from, you know, they want to help their team, and they forget that they need to take care of themselves first, whether it's nutrition or getting enough sleep, doing, you know, having the grades. And it's really not a problem for our student athletes, but those are all really important to making sure that you are successful and honoring the game. That's it. So synopsis of what was in the book and what they talked about, but I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that I came away with by just watching them, and I did get to sit in some groups with them. They let me.
I feel like these are real world skills.
Yes.
These aren't just, this isn't just about sports. This is life skills, this is real world skills, and as you say, correlated with their education also. So it covers it all.
Yeah,
It really does.
You know, I will say over and over again, I really do believe anything outside, athletics is like a co-curricular, and the
Right.
skills that you learn there can really translate into life. And I think and it's hard. I was saying I read an article about a individual who got a C+ and how devastating it was, and they didn't get into the college of their choice, and how she was grateful for that opportunity to not fail. I mean, she got a C+, which isn't failing, but to not do as what she expected to do, because then it helped her later on in life as she got. And and that's where I think the athletic field helps you, because sometimes you envision what's going to happen, and it doesn't always happen the way you envision, and it's frustrating. And then you can kind of, you know, look at yourself and what could have you done better, but also sometimes it is what it is. And because Melissa's here, I'll use the girls lacrosse team lost to a very strong Medfield team, and that was, I know that they had an incredible season, and you know,
Very, very good. And like my coach, what she does is, like you were saying, like she doesn't put us against teams that she knows we're gonna win to. She puts us against teams that are hard, and we're gonna have like a competitive game, because we're playing Medfield again during the regular season, not just during playoffs, just so we can work harder.
Yes, you do have them in the schedule equivocation. Yeah. So.
I love the ELM acronym.
Yes.
Like, again, to Carol's point. But that mistake and that ritual for setbacks, can't imagine anything that would help you more in life
I use it still.
than having your own messages you say to yourself when you have setbacks, because they will come. Whether they're in your personal life, your professional life, your collegiate life.
All three.
Yeah, all three.
Right.
So I
They're all
just think
related,
it's
right.
got so, like Marilyn
This
said,
is
so
the
many
first year of a 3-year partnership with them, so then it is really of reevaluating what areas of need do we have within the athletic department? And it will be interesting to see how the coaches, I haven't seen the coaches' presentation, but I know some of our coaches, youth sports, youth lacrosse has already gone through this, but I'm interesting to see how they use it, because the student athletes did say, like, when's my coach going to go through this? Because this is good stuff, and I think that positivity of remembering it is just a game, but you can still be very competitive and still strive to win. Yeah, I really, my mantra is character first, and then the wins should come. And I think we see that with our teams.
Any other comments?
It's fantastic. Keep it up.
We'll can
Keep
try.
doing it. It's great.
Always looking for inputs if you have any.
Fantastic. I know last year you did a presentation for parents on
Yes.
the Positive Coaching Alliance. Were you going to do that again? Or
Well, that's where we're going to see. I think, the parent one it's hard. You want to try to get, how do you get the most parents, and what avenue is the way to kind of reach them? And you tend to get the parents who are already probably doing the skills that they need. Yeah, and so it's how do you reach everyone and try to get them on board and kind of buying into it. And I think the parent one, I use my father as the example when he left my soccer game because I wasn't doing well enough, and I knew he left because I wasn't doing well enough, and we had a conversation after, and fortunately enough, I have a great relationship with my father, so I was able to have that. But, I think he realized that the game suddenly took more meaning over our relationship, and that he didn't make the same mistake with my brother and sister, or with me ever again. So, I'm very fortunate to have him, in my life as a positive role model. But sometimes, parents need to hear that, because it does. I see these games. These kids work very, very hard, and there's lots of disappointments, and they put themselves out there in a situation where, for ridicule, and that's not what it should be. It should be a positive experience. So.
Well, and sometimes as a parent, you think you're helping.
Yes.
And you're not really helping, the best way you can help is by saying, I love watching you play.
I do, and even I have a 1 and 2 year old. Who knows whatever they're going to do? I have no guarantees, but I'm practicing that already with that, because they say, I just love watching you play, and I say that to my husband all the time, and I actually brought home a book for him, and
I took that away from your
yeah.
presentation the last time myself. So
Yes.
thank you for
I thought
that.
this was great.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me, and
Keep up the good
Thank you
work.
for doing this.
yes, no problem. Thank you, and thank you.
I think it's just a great show of one of the many leadership opportunities our kids have here, whether it's through sports or athletics or clubs or activities or community
Yes.
service. It's just this music. There's so many.
Oh,
This is really elevating the game with leadership.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, I know the music department, Steve has created just a phenomenal, a base for something to strive towards, and, trying to get athletics, keep working on that too. It's great to have that, our kids, and it's great to share student athletes who are in the music department who then come into athletics, and we share students, which, is wonderful. So no, our students, the leadership stuff is great. It's really something I've wanted to continue to work on and will continue to work on here at the school. So.
Great.
Yeah, I remember, Caitlin, when you came in the fall, saying thank you for these extra things you're doing, because I wasn't aware of them, and
Yeah.
it is neat to try to take some of these opportunities to create additional leadership paths for our kids, so thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Good job, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Great.
So Diana and Laureen, if you are ready, we covered the item on the agenda right before you earlier.
Yeah.
We are ready to talk about program of studies.
See, Shannon and Sue and Paul, our three of our department heads are here.
Turn it over to them.
Oh, terrific.
Yep.
So just while they're getting settled, people watching at home, left to right, we have Shannon Wazalewski, who's the head of the English department, Laureen White, guidance, Sue Carl, math, Paul Charpentier, science, and we all know Diana Myers-Pacla. So you never know, sometimes people who haven't watched regularly might tune in. So welcome, everyone. This is always interesting to hear what you have planned for high school students, so I'll turn it right back over to Diana.
Well, as usual, we would like to do the best for our students that we possibly can. So what you have tonight are a few new courses that the departments are going to be offering this year. And one just real change that took place with the science review. And so I'm going to let the department heads take it away for each of the course descriptors and the one change. So.
Sure. We'll just go right in order.
Okay. In science, the changes to the program of studies, as Mrs. Myers-Packler mentioned, come out of the program review that we discussed last June. The real biggest change is the elimination of the physical science course for grade 9 students. And beginning next year, all 9th graders will be studying biology and taking their biology MCAS in grade 9. It's going to cause a bit of a moving logjam because we're going to have all the 9th graders and most of the 10th graders all taking biology next year. Fortunately, we have most of our staff is licensed to teach biology, we'll be able to handle that. But this is going to roll right through because the year after that, that bubble, as we're calling it, will be in chemistry and then in physics. And we'll deal with those as we get to them. But, you know, we're okay for next year. But moving biology down to grade 9 means that all sophomores will end up taking chemistry. And as a result, we have to think again of the needs of our students. So next year, we would like to pilot a section of a course that we're calling conceptual chemistry, where it is still a college prep course. It'll still have all the rigor that a high school chem course should. You know, we took the curriculum from the standard CP chemistry course, and we're not eliminating math, but let's say we're de-emphasizing it and stressing the concepts for those students who, you know, for whom math is a real challenge. And that's primarily going to be a sophomore course the year after next, but at least to get it rolling, again, we'd like to run a pilot next year of one section, and we'll have mostly juniors in there, but that'll primarily become a sophomore course.
Good.
We also made a very slight tweak to the graduation requirements for science. We're still keeping it at 3 years of science, even though close to, if not in excess of 90% of our kids exceed that. We'll still keep that graduation requirement of 3 years of science, but with the elimination of physical science, we want to be sure that our students are well-rounded and are exposed to all areas of science. So we're specifying that of their 3 years, one needs to be a life science and one needs to be a physical science.
Oh, that makes sense.
And in the science section of the document, we have listed which courses are life sciences and which courses are physical sciences, just to be clear. Again, I don't see that being much of a problem, but it would be possible for somebody to take all biology courses and satisfy their requirement. So we'd like them to be, again, a bit more rounded than that.
Yep. And just to make sure people heard you carefully, that wouldn't take effect until the class of 2020, which is
Right.
4 years from now.
Right.
So there'd be plenty of notice that, and by then you would have switched over to the new sequence anyway, so it shouldn't be hard for kids to meet that requirement. Just wanted to say that in case anyone's watching at home saying, oh my goodness. So it's not your students right now.
It's the incoming freshmen.
Right.
Okay, in math, as a result of the changes to the state frameworks 3 years ago, all freshmen started taking Algebra 1. So some of the advanced topics, they've now become available to all of the students. And as a result, we need to offer some new courses at the senior level to accommodate the students as they move forward with their 4 years of math requirement. So we're going to be putting in a statistics. It's a college prep class. It's Statistics B. We currently have a whole B series of courses in Algebra 1 and Geometry and Algebra 2, so it's a natural progression to offer those students the statistics class as well. And about 2 years ago, I had a couple of teachers come to me and talk about the need they felt for a calculus class offered at the college prep level. And now, again, with all of the students starting in Algebra 1 as freshmen, we feel that this is the right time to put that class in there. So we're calling it Foundations of Calculus. Those students will get some more review on some of the pre-calculus topics that they didn't go as in-depth with in the Algebra 2 classes, and then they will move forward into the first year really of a calculus class with derivatives. And if we're lucky, we'll get into some integrals. We have high hopes, but we will see where that goes for there. So those are our two. We have a third, but we're going to address that. Or do you want me to start addressing it now? Mrs. Spinelli, the computer class?
Yes, do you want to talk
Yeah,
about that
go
now?
ahead.
Okay, so in the packet, Diane and I put, as you know, a separate memo with the entire page and a half explanation of the Exploring Computer Science curriculum. And we had a lengthy conference call today with the woman who is coordinating the Northeast training. So we feel appropriately informed as of today. We're pretty excited about it. I think it's a great opportunity. The professional development will be right here in Massachusetts and implemented in many high schools. And their goal is to really make it more of a statewide effort. But this is a course that has been taught for the last year or two in some places who are piloting it, so it's deliverable. There's a course number that the Department of Ed recognizes as a computer science course. So we were able to ask all the questions that we had about cost, of which there's very little, and other things related to it. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what your perceptions were and where we are at this point.
I'm very excited about it. I'm sorry, I don't have my sheet right here in front of me. I left it over at my seat. But when you take a look at the descriptor, what I really like about it is it's 6 different units, I believe, that are going to be taught. And it's not all coding. It isn't all, the numbers. And oftentimes when you think about computers, that's what you think about. But it's really this digital piece. And then from there, how does that branch and how is it used and what are the different areas? So it's very much an exploratory, computer
Like
exploratory.
she called it Foundations of Computer Science.
And that's what I'm excited about for the students, because who knows what spark that might trigger in somebody that they had never thought about, that I had not thought about when it came to computers. So that's what we're very excited about. We already have interest by staff as well. And again, it's going to be local PD, and then there's backup with that. There's 6 or 7 other Saturdays for additional that'll go on for the instructors over the course of this year too. So we're just really looking forward to it and hoping the students are going to really kind of jump on board with it, as an elective that it could be very exciting and very different for some of them.
The only prerequisite is algebra, a year of algebra. So when we get rolling with this, anyone after freshman year could take it, hypothetically. And one of the things we also liked about this, as you can imagine, we've been chasing after this for a while, as is probably every other high school, but finally there seems to be some movement on it. So initially we thought we'd offer this Exploring Computer Science, and then we go to a second course they've developed called Computer Science Principles, and then a student would be ready for the AP Computer Science course, which is the APA course, which is Java programming language based. The AP College Board is switching their whole emphasis, where they'll still offer the A course for Java, but they're offering another course called Computer Science Principles, which will be newly implemented this September, which we're not going. But so what's happening is, if we offer this one that we've gotten into the program of studies now, they can go from this right to that AP College Board. I'm calling it B, but it's really the one about computer science principles, not specific to Java. So we could have kids going from this course right to AP Computer Science.
So that means you'd have another course potentially added to the program of studies next year that would follow this one.
Right.
Great.
Can I just clarify one thing? The just in what was given to us for the program of studies, it doesn't say in here that there's a prerequisite for the Algebra 1, and it says grades 9 through 12.
So it would really be 10 through 12.
So shouldn't it have
Just
the
like maybe
prerequisite
for
and
next
say
day.
grades
should.
10 through 12? Okay, just wanted to.
That was a recent addition, sorry.
Nope, that's okay. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what we're voting on tonight. Thank you.
Bruce?
Yeah.
I read through this, and there's 2 pieces I really like about this program, and that's the focus on computational thinking. I mean, there's a real mindset that has to be established there to go anywhere from here. And then there's another piece in there that I think is really important the students get at young, aside from the nuts and bolts part, but it's the ethical component. I mean, this is such a powerful body of knowledge, and with cybercrime and those sorts of things, the opportunities are remarkable, but it has to be for good and not for evil, you know, and I like that there's an ethical component in that, and that can be cross-curricula if they need it with this. I think it's impressive, and I love the foothold we have with this, and to grow on top of it, so.
So I was going
Fantastic,
to
thank you.
ask if this passed the Uden mustard test, because
Well, I don't know
this
if
has
I'm
been
the subject matter expert,
well, but this
it
has been
is
something
I'm
you've been very interested in.
passionate behind,
Yeah.
and thank you to everybody who's doing all the work and for all the work that you've done to get it in here. I think it's really terrific, a good start.
It's going to be a powerful network to be part of.
Yeah, thank you. And you've done it really cost effectively too. I mean, that's huge.
We're trying to figure out I keep asking what do you think our cost might be? But so far it might be for, which I'll talk about a little bit under donations, but so far it might be just in the area of when you get to the last unit, which is robotics. There'll probably be some resources we'd have to purchase. But other than that, there's no cost to send the teachers to the training on our part, and there's no fancy equipment that we don't already have. So it really is going to be a great opportunity.
And a pathway to our existing engineering that we also have. Nice
I
bridge.
did want to ask about licensing, because I noted on the bottom down here, the last paragraph, it says organizations interested in adopting ECS should contact to explore licensing opportunities. I just wondered if there were any licensing costs associated with this that we hadn't, whether that's all
No,
folded.
because we're part of the ECS network.
So that covers
So this
us
is on
with
their
regard to
website.
licensing? Yeah.
So it just means you can't take it and do it on your own kind of thing, but we're part
Fabulous.
of their Northeast Training Initiative.
That's great.
Which is being coordinated by local people in higher ed,
Great.
not just us on our own.
Well, then it's even more cost effective than I thought, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, and some of theirs has been subsidized, some of their work is subsidized by interested parties, including MassCan, the Computer Attainment Network, and others who are subsidizing the costs of the training, which is why it's free
That's
to
great.
us. So,
Fabulous.
Christopher Collins Foundation, I think, is a big
yes.
contributor to this
Out of
as well.
Framingham State University is a great, one of the key leaders in it.
That's fantastic. I know I've talked to a lot of parents who are very excited about this opportunity. Yeah.
Got to get the young women involved in this too. There's a real need for that type of thinking. It's different, not any better, not any worse, but it's a different type of thinking. It'd be nice to see young ladies getting involved. We already have. We had some interesting presenters a few months ago. So thank you again.
So we're excited.
And then English.
English.
Well, we have created 3 new electives for next year, just looking to kind of diversify our offerings and kind of pique the interest of some students. So we have added the role of women in literature, sports in literature, and dystopian literature. So 3 kind of very exciting elective courses for 11th and 12th graders for next year. And we have also kind of changed our SAT course for next year and added a review of ACT as well, just because we want to get more kids interested in taking the ACT. So we wanted to add that to our SAT course.
I love the new electives.
Me too.
There you go.
I'm just gonna jump right in. English was my minor, and I thought that, I was like, wow, these are great, I wish I could take them.
I know, we used to teach a lot more dystopian literature before we kind of revamped our 10th and 11th grade. So then we kind of looked at those, and they're just sitting on the shelves in the book room. We were like, we could use
Bring it to
those.
life.
So,
That's great.
especially with all the interest with the Hunger Games and Divergent, and so many kids interested in that.
What would you guys forecast for the number of students or offerings, classes for the new English electives and the computer science?
I've got no idea for
No,
the
yeah.
That crystal ball
computer
out.
science piece. The electives, well, this is not open to freshmen, so sophomores are limited, you know, it's a toss, because electives, the students only have maybe 1 or 2 sections in their schedule to put that class in, so it's gonna really be where their interests, where those interests lie.
And we just started the whole scheduling process. We've been down her in the last couple of weeks getting the freshmen well, soon-to-be freshman schedules going on, and we're going to be doing the high school ones in about 2 weeks. We'll be starting that. So then we'll know better, because it's so hard to tell. Like, we talk to the kids, oh yeah, that sounds great, but until we see what they sign up for and if it fits into their schedule and stuff. So I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, the 3 new English electives are all, they all count for senior elective credit for, because some of our seniors take semester courses for their English credit, and so all 3 of these fall under that, so that should get some kids
There's usually more
interested.
room for seniors in electives
Exactly.
anyway, because they've already done their requirements.
Exactly.
Would you picture, Sue, that we could handle, a few different classes of the computer science if we had to, or does that?
I personally would hope for one robust.
on top of everything we
engineering
currently
works.
have.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of what you're thinking. Because this one has the potential, I suppose.
It does. So, I mean, Maureen, you and I think we've talked about, does this draw the kids out of engineering? So now they choose this instead of engineering? Don't know. I mean, we had 2 sections of engineering the first year. We had 1 this year.
Okay.
Because it bounced back to 2 next year. I mean, I feel like some of this comes in waves.
And we talk about how it is the same group of kids and they can pick.
Correct.
Right, so.
Correct. So
So you just have to wait and see the
it's really
demand.
an unknown this year.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take
One
us a
section would
couple
be
of
great.
years. And it's going to take, I think, a couple of years for us to really see what that pattern is.
Yep.
Just because, again, it can be that interest up 1 year, down
Right.
another year.
Right.
No, I really want to try this with whatever that grouping happens to be. So I think it's going to take us a couple of years
Sure,
to really
I
see what
understand.
it's going to play
Just
out.
curious what your thinking was.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of teenagers. You don't know what they're
You
going to
don't
glom onto.
know.
I know.
You don't. But I think that's why I think they're sort of prepared for all
It's a
eventualities.
beauty.
There's
Oh.
something for everyone. It's just that we don't know what the flavor of the month or year will be, right? You never know. You might have a group of kids that all get together and get excited about one thing, and several of them sign up, or they might go take a left or a right or the path straight down the middle. Don't know.
It was great feedback for the engineering.
Is your,
Yeah, I mean, I knew a
Yes.
lot of kids that
Is
were
it
in
that
that,
bad,
and they
Steve?
absolutely
No.
loved
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of
Territory
them were
Barbie.
seniors too. There was a lot of junior
Fasten
seniors,
your
so that's-
seatbelts, sir.
So that's why it was 1 this year. They just gotta get that interest back. It's gonna be ebbs and
Right.
flows.
In terms of conceptual chemistry, I'm imagining one fewer section of CP chemistry as a result, because those students are already in college prep chemistry, but because math challenges them, it's not working out very well for them. So I'm kind of, again, imagining that we'll be kind of drawing 2, 3 here, 2, 3 there, and, having a course that is, designed with those kids in mind.
I agree with that. I think that's a wonderful idea.
I do too.
I just want to thank the department heads, as I always do when you come, because to me, this is really what is the lifeblood or the heartbeat of our school. Having these offerings that you guys continually refresh and update. I mean, this is just such a nice
And
thing to see
enrich.
for our students. It is very enriching. That's a great word for it, Bev.
Very cutting edge. you know?
Such a nice set of offerings. It does make you want to go back, doesn't it?
does.
Absolutely.
and I like the cost effectiveness of taking the books that are already on the shelf and putting them back in the hands of the students. Very cost effective. May I do a sidebar and
Please.
ask Shannon? I have just become aware within the past couple of weeks of the Globe Theatre in London's exciting season. They are going to have 5 female directors, and 4 of the plays they are going to produce are written by females.
Fabulous. I gotta check that out.
You better check that out. You better check out that February schedule. But isn't that exciting? That's a first for the Globe Theatre in London. Historical season is upon us.
Amazing.
Anything else for our high school team?
No, just thank you. They work really hard to put forward options that kids will like, and I think they do a great job every year.
And in our last June meeting, I want to know what the class numbers are for these I'm curious.
Us too. Very curious, yeah.
All right, we'd like to be the second to know.
No,
After you were the
I'm
first.
just the curious part. Yeah, we're very curious as to how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
So, high hopes.
Thank you very much.
Do you need a
Yes.
Then I'd like to move to approve the new classes for the program of studies.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
You passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're in.
Thank you, Tina.
My pleasure.
I'm going to start the next topic, and then I just have to sneak over and ask Shannon something that I needed to know that I was trying to get the answer, but I don't think I have service in this section of the thing. So the next item is the first reading of the policy, physical restraint of students. So I'd like to invite Dr. Einsel up here, Director of Special Education, and she and Tina actually are the experts on this new policy, which is modeled after the new law and is intended to synchronize with the new law about physical restraints of students in Massachusetts. So I'm going to turn it over to Tina and Sandra, and I'll be right back to the table.
Okay. Well, Dr. Einsel contacted me and Bev, and Bev was out of town, and Marilyn filled in on the policy subcommittee, working with Dr. Einsel and myself on this policy. Dr. Einsel contacted us to let us know that the regulations in the area of physical restraint of students had been changed and went into effect as of January 1st, 2016. So we need to bring our policy regarding restraint of students into compliance with current law in Massachusetts. And I'll let Dr. Einsel give you a little background since she is the expert here.
Sure.
And then we'll read the new policy.
I think one of the reasons that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education changed the regulations is because there's been a cultural change nationwide that restraint is really not good, and it's only used in an emergency situation. So that's what caused DESE, that's the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, to make these changes in the law. And as you'll see here, we're also asking for a name change. So instead of a restraint policy, we're doing a restraint prevention policy. Again, that just reflects the cultural change that it's nationwide, but certainly in this state. And 3, that it really reflects the best practices, that you don't restrain students. You do other things to de-escalate students so you don't have to use restraints at all. So.
Okay.
So we're ready for the first reading?
Why don't I get started with the reading, and then if the committee has any questions, Dr. Einsel's here, or me, but I think Dr. Einsel could probably answer your questions better, since she's the expert here, but I will get started. As Dr. Einsel said, the first change is to change the title of the policy to restraint prevention. Maintaining, this is file JKAA, restraint prevention. Maintaining an orderly, safe environment conducive to learning is an expectation of all staff members of the Foxborough School District. Further, students of the Foxborough Public Schools are protected by law from unreasonable use of physical restraint. Physical restraint shall be used only in emergency situations as a last resort after other less intrusive alternatives have failed or been deemed inappropriate and with extreme caution. The use of physical restraint in a manner inconsistent with 603 CMR 46 is prohibited. School personnel shall use physical restraint with 2 goals in mind. 1, to administer a physical restraint only when needed to protect a student and/or a member of the school community from immediate serious physical harm, and 2, to prevent or minimize any harm to the student as a result of the use of physical restraint. The following definitions appear at 603 CMR 46.02 and are hereby incorporated into this policy manual. 1, mechanical restraint. The use of any device or equipment to restrict a student's freedom of movement. This does not include a device that has been prescribed by an appropriate medical or related services professional that is being used for its specific and approved positioning or protective purpose. 2, medication restraint. The administration of medication for the purpose of temporarily controlling behavior. 3, physical escort. A temporary touching or holding a student without the use of force of the hand, wrist, arm, shoulder, or back for the purpose of inducing a student who is agitated to walk to a safe place. 4, physical restraint. Direct physical contact that prevents or significantly restricts a student's freedom of movement. 5, prone restraint. A physical restraint in which a student is placed face down on the floor or another surface and physical pressure is applied to the student's body to keep the student in the face down position. 6, seclusion. Involuntary confinement of a student alone in a room or area from which the student is physically prevented from leaving. The use of timeout procedures during which a staff member continuously observes and remains accessible to the student shall not be considered seclusion. And then the last is struck. And then the use of mechanical restraint, medication restraint, and seclusion is prohibited in public education programs. The use of prone restraint is prohibited except on an individual basis when all of the following conditions are met and documented. 1, the student has a documented history of repeatedly causing serious self-injuries and/or injuries to other students or staff. 2, all other forms of physical restraint have failed to ensure the safety of the student and/or others. 3, there are no medical contraindications as documented by a licensed physician. 4, there is psychological or behavioral justification for the use of prone restraint and no psychological or behavioral contraindications as documented by a licensed mental health professional. 5, the program has obtained consent to use prone restraint in an emergency, and the use of prone restraint is approved in writing by the principal. And 6, the program has documented all of the above before using prone restraint and maintains the documentation. The only staff authorized to administer a prone restraint are staff who have received in-depth restraint training in accordance with 603 CMR 46.043. Physical restraint is prohibited as a means of punishment or as a response to destruction of property, disruption of school order, refusal to comply with a school rule or a staff directive, or verbal threats that do not constitute a threat of imminent serious physical harm to the student or others. Physical restraint is prohibited as a standard response for any student, including in any individual behavior plan or individualized education plan, IEP. Physical restraint is prohibited when medically contraindicated. And the next 3 paragraphs are struck. The superintendent will develop written procedures identifying appropriate responses to student behavior that may require immediate intervention, methods of preventing student violence, self-injurious behavior, and suicide, including individual crisis planning and de-escalation of potentially dangerous behavior occurring among groups of students or with an individual student, descriptions and explanations of the school's alternatives to physical restraint and method of physical restraint in emergency situations, description of training requirements, procedures to comply with reporting requirements of 603 CMR 46.06, including but not limited to a procedure to make reasonable efforts to orally notify a parent of the use of restraint within 24 hours and by mail or email within 3 school days, description of restraint follow-up procedures, procedures for receiving and investigating complaints, methods for engaging parents in discussions about restraint prevention and the use of restraint solely as an emergency procedure, procedure for conducting periodic review of data and documentation on the use of physical restraints in accordance with 603 CMR 46.065 and 6, and procedures for obtaining principal approval for use of timeout for more than 30 minutes and for the extension of a physical restraint beyond 20 minutes. Each building principal will identify staff members to serve as a school-wide resource to assist in ensuring proper administration of physical restraint. These staff members will participate in an in-depth training program in the use of physical restraint, which the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education recommends be at least 16 hours in length. In addition, each staff member will be trained regarding the school's physical restraint policy. The principal will arrange training to occur in the first month of each school year or for staff hired after the beginning of the school year within a month of their employment. Only school personnel who have received training pursuant to 603 CMR 4604 shall administer physical restraint on students. Whenever possible, the administration of physical restraint shall be administered in the presence of at least one adult who does not participate in the restraint. A person administering physical restraint shall use only the amount of force necessary to protect the student or others from physical injury or harm. Any teacher, employees, or agent of the Foxborough Public Schools shall not be precluded from using such reasonable force as is necessary to protect students, other persons, or themselves from an assault or imminent serious physical harm. The program staff shall report the use of all physical restraint. The staff member shall verbally inform the administration of the physical restraint as soon as possible and by written report no later than the next school day. The principal or director or his/her designee shall maintain an ongoing record of all reported instances of physical restraint, which upon request shall be made available to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. When a restraint has resulted in an injury to a student or program staff member, the program shall provide a copy of the required report to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education within 3 school working days of the administration of the restraint. Legal references 603 CMR 46, Mass General Laws 7137G.
Very comprehensive.
It is, you can see from all the red underlined that a lot of this is new material from the new regulations that just went into effect. And we're incorporating it into our regulations to make sure that we're in compliance.
That's correct.
Yes.
I think that one of the things I do want to point out that it's been Foxborough's best practice not to restrain students and only to do so for safety reasons. So a lot of this is not anything new. The reporting is something that we're going to have to train staff on, but other than that, I think that as a culture, we really don't restrain students unless there's a safety issue.
But that's been our practice.
Yes.
And now they're putting it in law.
That's right.
I have a grammatical question, please, on page 1. We go back to page 1. The use
It should be
of
is. It should be is.
It should be is.
I read is.
She
It said
did, and I
are,
changed
but
it.
I had it changed here as well.
Yeah,
That's an is.
Okay.
Yes, you are correct.
Got it.
Are there any other
Steve?
questions?
Well, this is a first reading, so if we had any
Yes.
follow-up questions, would they be better done later?
No,
Right here?
now's great.
Number one, this is not my area of expertise, so excuse my naivete for any of my questions. Is there any language that is required by law that we have a video record of any such restraint in there? Okay, thank you, that's an answer. Do these policies overlap or cease to be used if law enforcement becomes an issue in such a situation where one may need to be restrained? They may have different methods of engagement. I don't know. I don't know if we're covered on those things. Again, I apologize for not knowing the full
I
body
think
of
that
knowledge
that's
here.
something that I certainly can look into, but I think that one of the other things is we often there's a response team, Riverside. The community, if we have a student that is in crisis, we will call them and they come out and they actually assess the situation for us.
Sure. And I'm not trying to do any gotchas here, but
No,
These are good questions.
does this policy also follow our students in our district and under our care, or under our, what's the right word I'm looking for?
The better word.
This is
Attention,
yeah,
or
right.
the students in our district that may be subject to this policy. Does our Foxborough policy follow them to any off-campus campus education they may have anywhere in the great 48?
This is the
I don't know.
law in Massachusetts,
It's
so it's going to
Massachusetts law.
follow them wherever
So it
they are.
follows
in
them wherever they go.
Massachusetts.
So
Absolutely.
I think all your policies cover,
Yeah.
govern
Okay.
how we care for students
Yes.
in any official school-sponsored setting.
And so my third question, and then I promise I'll be quiet.
No, it's good. It's a
Good
is,
questions.
does this policy then blanket a visitor from, say, out of state into our district?
No.
So our laws apply to people visiting us, and this is how we follow the rules, right? This is why I thought maybe I'll ask later, because
I don't understand
it's
the
really
question.
interesting,
A
but
visitor,
it's really
like
rich
a
and
performer
important.
or a student, I'm not sure what
Another
you mean
student
by a
athlete?
visitor.
I mean, I don't know. Like, let's say somebody comes in from Rhode Island to do a Special Olympics event. I don't know, something that may have an increase in the possibility of needing to use physical restraint or not. Does our policy blanket that visitor because it's state law?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say no.
Okay.
Your local school committee policies govern the Foxborough Public Schools students.
Okay.
They don't even govern other students who may
Mansfield.
attend schools locally.
Okay.
However, this whole policy is based on a state law.
Right.
So
State law.
this one actually has more of an umbrella over it.
Okay.
So, as opposed to others, which
Yeah, and I'm not finding fault,
Whatever.
there are more questions of interest. I
Yeah.
apologize if I'm holding the meeting up, so.
No, these are good questions, and I
That's why
mean,
we do the first reading, so you're good.
Do we have any parental input that is required at this point, or caregiver input?
because the law is law.
I mean,
So
Change
people
your
could have
policy
different
to update to the
opinions on
law.
how much they, I mean, the extremes that you read here rarely happens. I think you can
Right.
ask Dr.
Right,
Reitzel
right,
that.
right, right.
But if it were to be necessary, these are the parameters that we are allowed to operate under when a student requires redirection. I'll just call it redirection for now.
Right.
So this guides how we may redirect students to promote a safe and orderly environment while protecting their rights as well. So,
well, and it also very narrowly defines those instances
does.
and mandates reporting and training of our personnel. So it makes, that's why restraint prevention is a more appropriate title for this policy, because the state law has been, the parameters of it have been redefined
Yes.
in order to protect students and staff.
Right.
And once we bring our own policy into compliance, then Dr. Einsel is going to take it and train everybody.
That's
in the
correct.
law.
they already have, so we're a little cart and the horse kind of at
Yeah.
the same time,
think they-
because we're bound to follow the
Right.
law, whether the
Absolutely.
policy is
Right.
ready or not. I mean, any law supersedes your local policy, but they need to be in sync for the purpose of transparency and common understanding is appropriate. So, no, we haven't done any outreach to parents or guardians, because if you asked around the table, to what extent do you think it's proper to go if my child's out of control, you might have slightly different opinions at this table. Local, individual or group or local opinions don't matter when we just have to meet the law. So people can have all the opinions they want, but this is what we must do under the law.
And I think that if a student, if they think that this might be a possibility, those kind of discussions happen at the IEP meeting. Because no one wants any surprises.
Sure.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have a quick question. So, I read that, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. So, of these various restraints that are defined on the first page,
Yes.
mechanical, medication, and seclusion are prohibited.
Yes.
So what is permissible in Foxborough Public Schools is prone and timeout. Is that what I'm,
With
The
supervision.
physical
excuse me,
restraint.
physical.
Right,
Right, physical, prone, and timeout?
right, but we've never used prone here.
I understand. I just want to make sure, I need to net it out. So
Sure.
I understand which restraints we've defined are not allowed and which ones are allowed. I'm uncomfortable reading the whole policy, to be honest.
It's pretty, it's very in-depth.
It is very detailed.
They wanted
It is
they wanted
uncomfortable.
it to be this way because I think in the past they haven't been in-depth. So
Right.
different towns have kind of
Interpreted.
interpreted it their own way.
Yeah.
And that's caused a lot of problems.
No,
and
I
people
think it
have
is
used
good that it be
Yeah.
defined.
Yes.
It's not a pleasant subject.
No.
I'm glad to hear it's not something we have to deal with very often.
No.
Right.
But I wanted to be very clear on which restraints we're allowed and which ones we aren't.
Exactly.
Era?
Actually, it's just a physical escort is also allowed under the policy as well.
That's
which is
correct.
separate restraint.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I think one thing I like to see in this too is that it does clearly differentiate between what they're calling physical escort and restraint. Because there, if you, often, not necessarily with us, but in other places where there's been an incident where a child requires physical, I'll call it redirection for lack of a better word, there have been differences of opinion on whether if you guide the child over to a quiet space to protect him or her from themselves or to protect peers from them, that is that restraining or is it not? And so this more clearly defines what restraint is and what physical escort is, if that's appropriate for a child. So a light touch on the back, come over here, isn't restrained. So they can't say, you restrained my child, it's not in the IP. So I think they did a really good job in the law and in the policy guidance to try to define all possible scenarios.
Good.
One last
Yeah, go ahead,
question, I'm
Steve.
sorry. Do we, or does the law prescribe a particular type of area for where the student, where one might be isolated? And that is, do we have to have a certain type of area for them to be in so everybody's safety is guaranteed? Any adaptations we may need to do to our physical plant in any way?
I think those are the certain procedures that talk about a little bit about this. We will develop our own, and we can share that with you, but it's basically, you have to have a clean and safe space.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
the law does not define what that space should look like.
Right.
And just, you said isolated, I just want to be clear, no one would be isolated.
I'm
because that
sorry.
would fall under seclusion.
I was trying to, yeah, seclusion. I was trying to find the language.
And
I'm
we've never
sorry.
actually had such a
Right.
location for us, so
Right.
I think what we've been doing in practice actually meets the new law.
yes.
Right.
But other places have found it different, different, they've been doing some other practices they may have been not aware, maybe aren't best practices. But I think what we've been doing, my conversations with Sandra for the last several years, are exactly what the new law is recommending. So for us, it's a re-education and a validation of the law of what we feel are best practices as well.
That's correct. I think the reporting is probably going to be the biggest change for us.
Yes.
That is right.
Good job, Tina and Sandra.
I want to thank Dr. Einzel and Tina for including me and Bev suggesting that, so I could get educated on it also my rookie year. Thank you.
It was a perfect
Very informative.
opportunity.
You don't seem to be
great.
sending you easy ones.
No, well, baptism by fire.
That's what I am. I'm totally baptism by fire.
And
Why
it's
not?
great to have people you have confidence
Thank
in.
you
Because
very
The day they
much.
were meeting, I had a conflict, I'm like, you're fine, here
Yep.
you go. Go take it.
very
But
informative.
It's
It
really
was-
great to have that level of confidence in people.
That's great.
Thank you.
So we'll
Okay.
have the second reading at the next school committee meeting.
So it is time to approve next year's school calendar.
It is. So, just to remind people, I think it's my duty to present you with a couple of thoughts and options, which I did in December, and which you had a brief discussion about at the first meeting this month in January. And now here we are back at the second meeting in January, where the committee must vote on the calendar. And a lot has happened in the 5 weeks since we were first considering our options. So I just want to say up front, as I've always said, I think it's my duty to provide the committee with some options for your consideration, but we always can make anything work. So, and I will say this year particularly was a little bit different from last year. It was still a late Labor Day, but maybe not quite as urgent as it was last year. And I think what happened this year is there are so many pros and cons to both options. And I think that shows. So what we provided for you, we said that we would connect with the teaching staff or the staff period, and let you know how people felt. And as you can see, others felt the same way, that there's pros and cons to the traditional. Don't bring students back until the Tuesday after Labor Day. And there are pros and cons about option 2, which is to bring kids back for an early return. As you can see, the vote was quite close. A total of 112 staff members preferred the traditional calendar, and a total of 97 staff members preferred the early return. 8 had no opinion. So I think that's good for the committee to know that there wasn't this year a strong preference for one over the other, but a slight preference for traditional. And that's what I was checking with Shannon on. She's on the board because the executive board of the Teachers Association, the Professionals Association, also weighs in as professionals, and they had the same type of discussion, and their preference as a board mirrors this. So they had a debate about the pros and cons of either, and Shannon just confirmed for me that their ultimate preference was for the traditional this year. So, good to know.
Shannon?
She's on the board, the FEA board, true. So I just wanted to confirm.
The ultimate was for the traditional?
Yeah, I think that everybody sees the benefits, perhaps the educational benefits of the early return, but perhaps the family calendar type benefits of the longer summer. And it's only a few days, so it's good. It's a good problem to mull over. But I think whatever the committee decides, that there are equal number of people who would have voted your way and equal number of people who might have gone the other way. But I don't think anyone feels so strongly this year, or as passionately as they did last year, perhaps. Fair enough?
Yeah, the one other observation I made from your data, and thank you for collecting the teacher data, is it looks like the high school and the Ahern were pretty much leaning towards the early return is better.
It's true.
And the elementary schools were leaning towards.
I
the-
kn- I
I noticed that too.
And it makes sense, right? Because I think
It does.
Younger kids,
the
yeah.
instructional requirement,
Correct.
the preparation for testing.
They're, in the secondary schools, middle and high school, they're a
Spread
little
out.
bit more cognizant of their preparation for students on the high-stakes tests, whether it's PARCC or students still have MCAS graduation requirements, or the AP exams, so all of that definitely weighs a little bit more heavily with the secondary staff in favor of the early return, getting more instructional days in
What jumps out at you?
earlier in the year.
It actually jumps out at
Right
you.
away.
It is.
Go ahead, Steve.
To those numbers, the FHS and the Ahern, what is it? Delta 25 and 10, something like that, right?
Correct.
Was there any adamacy about that? Like, were people adamant about option 2 with such numbers, or
Yeah,
was
I-
it sort of like a
I
informally?
No. I wasn't informal, but then again, I don't know. I wasn't there. What we did, because we felt, why not get everybody's opinion and actually make it a little bit easier on our education association by doing it ourselves. So I actually made posters with the two options, and I named them, and I said, this is traditional, this one's early return, what are your preferences? The committee will be voting on January 25th, and rather than just a tally, they had to go to the school secretary to weigh in with their choice. So they were able to do that on their own time. There wasn't everybody together in a room where you had to look around and you think you have to go with the majority. It wasn't anything like that. And it also wasn't, you get to see how many tallies are for or against. You had to go individually and put your vote in. So that's what happened at each school. There was a poster display near their mailboxes for them to peruse and then go and.
So numerically, it's obvious, but there's no fight for one versus the other.
I
no
couldn't tell you.
Strong opinions.
I
'Cause
don't
I'm an option 1 guy, so that's where I'm probably going.
My guess is there's probably strong opinions on both sides of this.
I heard
for
from
people.
no citizens in the last 2 weeks. I heard from no one. And last year I did.
No, I know. Last year I received emails.
And I was happy to hear from people, obviously, but I heard from no one.
I had several say to me they preferred traditional.
I've heard from both sides. So.
yeah.
Oh, have you?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
as we've discussed, this
Well,
is
mostly
this is
in
a
conversation. I haven't received. Well, I've received one text.
this is a topic that we're not going to get everyone happy with.
No.
I think the most important thing is the superintendent made the comment repeatedly that she can make either one work.
Right.
So I don't think it's a big crisis. And as I said at this time last year in this discussion, if this is our biggest debate, we're very fortunate.
Completely agree.
We're very fortunate.
Our students are going to get 180 days of
Yes.
good education, excellent education, either way.
Okay.
Did
Does,
we motion to vote?
Yep, you can make a motion.
I'd like to motion that we vote on the as presented school start dates labeled in our documents as traditional, the blue document, and early return, the yellow document. Did you want me to state the dates?
No,
starting?
but for clarity, that's the post-Labor Day start, correct?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So you're motioning, we'll do formal Roberts rules here. So that's,
Okay.
so you're motioning that we go the post-Labor Day start, the traditional
The
option.
traditional one, that is my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second. Is there any further discussion?
And this is for traditional?
This is for
Yes, an
traditional.
affirmative
So you
vote.
don't have to vote for it.
Correct.
It can fail, and then we would make another motion.
Okay.
All those in favor of the traditional post-Labor Day start?
Right.
It's 3-2.
So it passes.
It's all right. Well, it's so it passes, but I'm,
Well,
I
we
just.
didn't have an abstention or anything, did we?
Well, no, we.
All those against?
Oh, there you go, okay.
Go ahead, Bevy.
No, I just, having been a former teacher, I tend towards the instructional positivity of this.
Yeah. I struggle with it too, because I really think it's our job at this table to do what's best instructionally. That's my opinion. But I'm also reminded of last year when we did commit to the public that this would not become habit.
That's right.
We roll the dice on snow days. With all due respect to Tina's comment, I don't think the days in June are quite as instructionally effective.
Definitely not.
But I really value something Debbie says too, which is, there's educational value in a lot of things. There's educational value to kids being with their parents in the summer, doing summer activity. So, I share the challenge, Bev. I just feel personally like, we go back and try the other way again. And
Well, and for the next 2 or 3 years, we're
It's gonna
going
keep
to,
happening.
it will become less of a question because of the changing
Calendar.
in the backing up of the calendar.
Right.
And then we'll come to the crunch again.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Any further comments?
Nope.
Thank you.
This has been informative for me as well. I think, I agree, last year was a little bit more urgent to decide on something maybe a little different. Since you don't feel that way this year, I might next year, if just put in the traditional, because we've gone away from the years where it's just, here's the calendar, what do you think?
Yep.
But I think when it's not as urgent as was last year, to Bevy's point, it's gonna let it get the traditional after Labor Day start, it's gonna get a little bit more friendly. That maybe next year we'll just look at that,
I do
unless
think,
I hear anything different.
I do think there's some value in consistency of our calendar for people who plan. There are people who make their vacation plans, a whole year in advance, and some kind of consistency is helpful, I think, to families.
Good. Thank you very much, everybody, for the thoughtful discussion. Okay, FY17
No.
budget public hearing and vote of recommendation.
Yes, so here's our third public meeting where we're discussing the school budget. We didn't hear, unless Bill did, I don't think we've heard any further questions from the committee between the last meeting and this one. If you have any now, I think this is a good time to ask for clarifications. Bill, any thoughts?
Yeah, obviously, one of the notes I put into your packet is a change to the budget of about just under $25,000. The town side has decided, based on fuel cost, or the reduction in fuel cost, that they're pulling down their budgets to basically equate to about a 25% decrease over where we've been in past years. As you know, as an example, in this particular year, because we are running so well, we did acquire a vehicle using some of the excess out of that fund. I did, in conversations with the town side, have, comments about being concerned because no one has a crystal ball that says where these fuel prices are going to stay. As you know, we've gone from almost $4 down to, $1.80 at the gas pumps. But we also don't have the same outlet that the town side has, and that is if their budgets all of a sudden were strained because it went back up, they can go for a reserve fund transfer. It's not likely the school $32 million budget is going to get a reserve fund transfer for fuel going up. So, that being said, I think that as a potential 1 year here, a sign of good faith on our side, and they know we're in the same bucket with them. So obviously, if things don't go well, it will be an issue for us as well. But I'm suggesting that we do drop it down. We had already had a decrease in what I was projecting of almost 19,000. And I'm saying that we take it the other 25,000, so it would be a 43,800 reduction in our fuel line, which is basically what services our buses and our maintenance vehicles across the district, and that would reduce the overall school budget down to $32,969,309 that comes from the general fund.
Just read that number one more time, Bill, please.
$32,969,309.
Which brings us to 3.9%, rather than, I think it was 3.97 or another couple hundredths in there.
And that's the new number that
So
you
that
have
would be
here.
the new bottom line number that
Yes.
you would request a vote on tonight. Other than that, we haven't had any other adjustments or questions or debates.
Any questions for Bill? For any of the public watching who hasn't heard our prior discussions, go back and watch any of the last couple of school committee meeting Foxborough Cable Access videos, and you'll be able to see some of the discussion about what's in the budget. But if there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve as presented with adjustments from Mr. Yukner, this year's budget proposal.
A second.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. With gratitude, Bill, for
so much for
your
that.
very thorough, as always, preparation of the budget, even bringing to us tonight this decrease, which is terrific.
I think the fact that none of us have any additional questions just points to the level of detail that Bill and Debbie have already given us
Yeah.
in this budget, and how well presented it has been to this point.
All kudos to Bill.
The next thing is obviously our CIP budget. I'm recommending a change here too, and I wish I could really have a true comfort here, but I've done about as much as I can do at this point. The base CIP budget with our buses and everything, copiers, that stays the same. The item in question is the MSBA funding for the feasibility study and the schematic design. As I said to you before, what they've taken on is a new approach. It's kind of like a three-phase approach. The first one is allowing you into an eligibility period, a 270-day period in which you have to do a lot of documentation. Part of that documentation timeframe, though, is also getting approval by the town that we would fund the feasibility study and the schematic design phase, which is the second phase. So you have to basically, in the first phase, prove that you've already gotten that part done. Obviously, if we don't get accepted beyond the first 270 days, that money never gets spent. The town doesn't, there's no liability there. And there is specific wording, which I'll be handing out in one of the next meetings, that will have to be voted at town meeting as an approval, that they understand that that's exactly what's going to happen here. My concern is, after looking at 20 different districts and their evaluation of their cost under this new program, the feasibility side, which again is very similar to what we're doing with the town hall side, so we're basically developing everything up front and then seeing if you get approval to go forward. The only difference here is we're stopping short. We're stopping at the point of just having a drawing, if you will, a schematic design that says this is what we want the Borough School to look like. We're not actually getting blueprints done. We're not getting specs done. We're stopping at that point to see if the MSBA. So it's a very shortened process and a very shortened cost. The biggest component to this is the owner's project manager's cost, because they are, from day one of that, after the 270 days, they are basically going to be working with the architects to develop a plan of the building, to evaluate the educational criteria we put forward for that building, and to make sure that each of the components of the building meet that educational requirement. So there's a lot more time and effort put in. That being said, I still find this number to be a very high number in my mind from everything I've seen in the last 14 years I've done this. But it's a low number compared to what I'm seeing on all the reports from the 20 districts. So And again, this is all subject to the MSBA funding formula, which would give us back a percentage of it, if we actually go into the second stage. So I'm recommending at this point, and I hope if it gets clarified somehow, there's a couple of things that we need to go through ourselves, where this number may come down before town meeting, then I'd like to do that. But as you know, we can't raise on town meeting floor. So I would prefer to say that instead of the $600,000, that would be asking for $700,000. Again, if anything is close to where we've been in the past, it's about a 49% reimbursement from the state side. And again, if we don't spend it in this phase, then it gets reversed back to the town as well, or can be used into the second phase if we're allowed into it and the town agrees to fund into the second phase. So I'm suggesting the $700,000 just because, again, we have restraints on us as we move forward here, and I'd rather feel a little bit more comfortable that we've covered those without having full detail of exactly what each piece is. So. Like I said, I've done it before, and I don't see these costs on this level, but I really don't want to hamstring.
Process has changed a little bit too, so. And the vote is this Wednesday, the MSBA vote, and we'll find out whether we're invited in by the end of the day on Wednesday.
So, and a couple of things, it's nice that they kind of informed us when they did because of our budget process. So we're a little ahead of the game that some others might be. We've already basically, by getting, pushing this funding forward, obviously it has to happen by May town meeting, but it's one of those phases, as I said. And also I'll be submitting to you for your review next time, which will be then sent back to the town, the warrant articles that have to be done too. So basically those are 2 check marks on that 270-day thing that we have to accomplish. But they are timely, and they're timely to our annual report, our annual town meeting. So, and as you know, with those just closeout dates for warrants and everything else like that. So we're trying to just make sure we're ahead of that, no matter what happens in the process. As I said, everything else on the CIP as far as cost, the computers, buses, copier replacement, the IGO paving, and the, are all as we previously discussed. So no changes with those.
Sam Burns Community Field concession stand and bathrooms in there.
Yes.
In case
I'm sorry.
anyone hadn't heard
Yep.
about that in the past. Okay, any questions for Bill about the CIP?
When's the CIP committee meeting?
It's the second weekend in March. It was going to be the first. They changed it to the 8th. Is that a Saturday? Around then.
Yeah, okay.
But again, our deadline
We
with
have
you
to
guys is by the end of this
yeah,
month, so.
Yeah, I know. Just curious.
Anyone want to make a motion to approve the CIP plan with the additional 100,000 for the feasibility study?
I'd like to make a motion
As
to
presented.
approve that.
Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. You want to kick this next one off, Deb?
Oh, sure. So the school committee, as you know, appoints subcommittees for various reasons throughout the year. Policy, of course, being one, budget being another. And now we have two others that come up every 3 years. So this is the school committee subcommittee appointments for negotiations with the professionals, educational professionals contract, or as we call it, the Teachers Association, and the Educational Assistants Association. So every 3 years, we enter collective bargaining with our units. Bill and I will be coming to you hopefully at the next meeting with the maintenance contract. Last year, we had the custodians and the
Crossing guards.
what did we finish up last year? Whatever.
Crossing
We have
guards,
eight sort of associations altogether. But this year is our big year to be starting in about a month with the teachers and the educational assistants, which are our two biggest bargaining units. And while Bill and I do the other smaller groups together, this does require, we would prefer having school committee representation on it. And I think it's great for the committee to participate. It is your collective bargaining agreements with all the associations, and I think it goes a long way toward understanding their challenges and showing that respect for their role, and they do like to have school committee members on there. So we would love to see if any of you would like to be on any of these collective bargaining groups.
Yeah, and maybe I can just offer a couple of experiential thoughts, and Bevy, if you want to do the same, feel free. But just for everyone's benefit, I think these are great opportunities. I've had the chance to be on the teacher negotiation one the last 2 times we've negotiated the contract. It does take a little bit of time, typically after school, for several meetings. But I think it's, as Debbie said, I think it is a nice way for us to be involved with our union and their leadership team. So I think it's a good experience. From my perspective as chair, I don't have any preference who does what on either of these. I think we all work real effectively. Our policy subcommittee doing such a great job. Our budget subcommittee doing such a great job. So please don't feel like you have to do one or the other, but I really think if anyone would like to do either of these, that they should volunteer.
Well, I am unable to serve in the teacher negotiations just because I was a teacher. That will keep everything clear.
Need 2 people on each one, just like we did. I don't have a preference, so whatever you feel would be good fit for me since I'm new at this.
Okay.
I was the educational assistant negotiation person the last time. I'm happy to do.
I'd like to see you offer to do the teacher this time then.
I was just about to do that. Thank you.
No.
Read her mind.
I'm happy to do whatever is needed, but I'd be happy to do the teacher negotiations
Okay.
with you or
Okay.
with anyone else.
Okay. Steve, would you just as soon not do one at this time, or?
Yeah, I'd like to think about that if I could.
That's fine.
Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so Marilyn, you're willing to do either. Tina, you're volunteering for teacher. Bevy, can you help with the educational assistance one?
I can.
Yeah.
Would you like me to do it with you? Okay.
So,
That's a good place to start.
Okay. I'll do that with Bev.
Okay, and Tina and I will do the teachers.
Perfect. Done deal.
Can we just get a motion to make that official?
I'd like to motion that Tina Bellinger and Bruce Gardner be appointed to the Subcommittee for Teacher Negotiations, and that Beverly Lord and Marilyn Weiss are the subcommittee for the Educational Assistant Negotiations Subcommittee.
Thank you,
for
Steve.
2016.
Thank you. Second?
Second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, thank you.
Many, many thanks.
We are flying through the agenda, which
We are,
my
we're way
cold
ahead of
really
schedule. Don't say
appreciates, so
anything,
thank
don't
you.
say anything, I know.
Great.
We're all like, don't say anything, we're gonna get tied up. Yeah, it's like,
2016 District Report Card.
Yes, I'm going to turn this over to Amy. As you know, each year for the last 4 years, we've come forward as part of our strategic plan where we want to promote benefits of the district, and we also want to make it known what we're proud of and what our achievements are. And this district report card, as you know, goes to every mailing address, every postal address in Foxborough, whether it's a residence, whether it's a business, whatever it is. So we put together our data for this year, and Amy will take us through some of the highlights.
On the first page, the only change is adding Maryland as far as school committee member. So we turn into the inside. A lot of the data here is the same, looking at our enrollment, et cetera. But what is different is that because we had the park, typically we've looked at our performance of impasse historically. So what I put here was looking at grade 10, because it is a graduation requirement, and we do have cumulative data there.
Good.
So that's showing grade 10 for the last 3 years, and then to have a comparison point, looking at where does the state fall in connection with ours. The per pupil expenditure, looking at the last 5 years, and that trend line there. And then the other difference here is the technology highlights is really looking at, number one, 100% wireless in all schools, which is really exciting, and having all of those access points. And then adding mobile devices with our laptop carts and having those now in all 5 schools. So really calling attention to not only the number of labs that we have, but our mobile labs, which is really exciting, and it's much more exciting to see them in use too, in classes. On the other side here, looking at what's new, the engineering here is the second year as well as senior project. Looking at our class gift, which was incredible for this C.M. Burns Community Memorial Walkway, and calling attention to that. Again, the wireless internet access, and then what we discussed earlier, looking at the AP, the second year in a row is being named to that honor roll.
And related to that is in the left column, under the paragraph under AP courses. So it just explains a little bit about why we were honored again this year, that in 2015, there was a 22% increase in the number of students taking AP courses compared to just the year before. That's
huge.
It is huge. It's very, very significant.
That's almost a quarter. I mean, literally.
Right.
that popped out at me.
That's great.
And then also on that side, looking at the recognition of, as far as Boston Magazine's rankings, moving up there, being ranked in the top 125 ranking public high schools, moving up from 42nd to 35th from last year. And then the other pieces here to call out that are new pieces. Again, we increased our Scholastic Art Awards, so each year we've been increasing, which really attribute to our artists and what they've been doing. The opportunities for student leadership and challenge, looking at the iSchool advocates, and then PCC, the Project Contemporary Competitiveness, which took place for the first time for our students at Stonehill College this summer. And I think those are really the changes from last year to this year, other than data points looking at 91% of our students pursuing continuing ed, and the number that are enlisting in military or going into the workforce. So any other thoughts or suggestions are welcome.
Good job.
I think this is fantastic. I did have one thought. Under virtual high school, I know that our 8th graders at the Ahern also have the opportunity to do a limited number of virtual high school classes, but it's a cool elective that's offered to the 8th grade. A handful of 8th grade students as well there. So
Right. We only have a couple of seats, though, because we basically, but I think parents might pay for the seats, so we weren't sure we should put them.
We don't, both my kids took.
Some do if they're not on the few lists, so we weren't sure whether to include that, because it's not something we offer widely necessarily.
Well, if it becomes a wider offering, that's the time you.
Right, like we don't own 25 seats a semester like we do with the high school.
Yeah.
So we can't always guarantee numbers of
Right.
seats. So actually, we thought about that.
Yeah, I just think it's a neat opportunity that, even a few, we offer enrichment at all different levels. And
Right.
It is
Think of
an
that.
enrichment
You
opportunity.
can think about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It-
So VHS, that's basically.
Just something
Or
to think about.
enrichment opportunities, period, that
Period.
take place at the middle school level.
The other thing, I wouldn't change this, but it ties in together with the Scholastic Art Awards and the, when did AP Studio Art become available to our students? Because the two things, I
This is
think,
the
go-
second year
Yeah,
we've offered
I
it.
mean, we've increased our AP offerings, we've increased the amount of students who have the AP Studio Art available to them, and we've increased the amount of awards these students are getting. They do incredible things. It just blows my mind.
Even, it was a week and a half ago, being up here with our art students, we had students from Mass Art, not even our students, come back
Yeah.
and critique and give feedback to our students and let them
great
know what to
opportunity.
expect when they go
Well,
on
that
to
must have
higher
been
ed.
excellent.
It was such a great opportunity and what our students were able to hear from peers that were just a year or two out.
But had a little more experience than they.
But I think this looks fantastic. Have you gotten feedback from our local real estate agents? I know we talked about,
As
this
much as
being
we
something-
anticipated. Once in a while, we get one saying,
Like an
that's
email,
great, thank
yeah.
you. But I think in general, a couple of businesses actually who appreciated getting it, even though it probably didn't help them at all, just to know what's going on.
Going on,
So I'd say we get maybe 1 to 3 a year saying, that was really great, good to know, thanks for including us as well, but not as much as we thought when we first started it.
Yeah.
I still love it, though. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it
Sums
really
up
shares things we're proud of and lets people know what the schools are up to. And
I agree.
was it easier to format this time?
Each year.
Each year, I know.
Oh, that,
Great
that
job
brings
with
me to my question.
Although I will say on the formatting with the graph here, to get it to where you have so much data in one small location that you can still read it can be challenging.
Right.
Go ahead, Steve.
Now that you said format, Amy's gonna stick a pen in my ear, but, no, the format's fine. I just wondered two things. One, of course, I think it's, I like our average class size numbers. I think that's a loud number, and something to kind of be proud of as a school. That's just a comment. But is there any room on this, or is it appropriate on this report card, Debbie, Amy, to put some kind of number that acknowledges parental, family, and booster participation in our schools? Not necessarily at a dollar level, but like, I'm making these numbers up, but we have 50 parents and caregivers who regularly volunteer to booster programs in our schools, to show the world when they see this, like, let's say, our economic development committee that the town has now, that we have a vibrant engagement with not just the students and the community and the business community, but also with the parents and families who are stakeholders in our school.
Well,
It's
now
just
you're
a
saying
comment,
that last
right?
paragraph under did you know,
Uh-huh.
we did put about generous parent groups, but we do not have athletic and music boosters. So I think that would be a really good addition to put right
Well,
after that.
there's only so much room on the paper, and I'm not trying to change
No,
the
but we have one
dynamic
more
of the
line,
document.
and I know that because
No, I've
Amy's
edited a lot
formatting
of pages, and I'd be
Amy's
like,
formatting
"Oh,
is at risk now
no."
because she puts this in a shared folder that I can get to.
I don't know,
So
it's just-
I
gets
will
sneak
go
in there.
on and do the, and do my little changes, and then as long as I don't think I've messed up her formatting
I'm
terribly
not
much.
asking for it on it, I'll be clear, I'll be
But
clear, I'm not
I-
asking we put it on it, I'm
That
just
section I
saying,
reworked, so I
seemed
know there's a
kinda-
little section in there. So
seems
I
like
will include that.
germane.
Athletic and music boosters would be great to
Yeah,
include.
active, they're active and vibrant or whatever, something like that. I don't know, that's just my 2 cents. Thank you, this is a great report.
Really, when you reduce space between paragraphs to 8 versus a 10, you actually get a lot of space.
sorry, Amy, to
Yeah.
front.
Yeah, when you change the font.
Because I was pretty excited that when I messed with that, I still had a line in there.
Yeah. Go to 8 point, go to 6 point. Anyway, that was just, thank you very much.
I have 3 little thoughts, but none of them are critical. For your consideration or dismissal.
Sure.
I think in the reference to the 6th annual AP honor roll, it would be cool to say one of 435 or whatever the number is.
Yes, I agree.
Excuse me. Number 2, I don't know if you want to say anything about the kindergarten options and what's changing, or you want to wait till next year?
You know,
I
I
bet
gave
you
this
thought
a lot of
about
thought.
That's the same thing, yeah.
I'm afraid to send something out that
Yep.
say there might not be an additional fee a year from now, because this
Yep.
September
Yep.
there is, so. Then I thought about saying that we've,
Yep, nope,
we
I
reducing
trust-
Gotta go to
the
town
fee, then I
meeting.
was.
I was gonna say, when we have it approved
We need to
before
have
we
this
do
whole
that.
thing approved.
Yep,
I
okay.
think that'll be our
approved,
good
but-
news of next year.
Two more.
Right, so we can't
Technology
put that in. I don't
highlights
think
number
so.
of mobile devices. When I think of a mobile device, I think of a smartphone or something, but you're thinking of a cow.
laptop cards.
We have
or a-
laptops.
cows, yeah.
So I wonder if there's a different word than a device.
Just write cows, no one will know what we're talking about.
Mobile labs or mobile workstation.
If we do labs, then it's going to be 3.
Mobile
Because
systems?
we're thinking about the mobile carts themselves.
Maybe,
Do you,
Just write
no,
computer on
so let me
wheels.
ask you a question. Is it to say, not to say mobile devices, to call them something else, or are what we miss, is what we're missing on here, the fact that we're a bring your own device district?
well, two separate points, I think. You could put a line right below that says, "We are a bring your own device." Just state that.
Just not-
I
But,
think that's important.
yeah, it's a
Yes,
good
it
one.
is.
But I would just say number of mobile cows or something and let people figure out what that is. To me,
They can
mobile-
email Bruce and ask him what it means, the
Yeah.
Well,
acronym.
see, we do call them devices, though, because instead of computers on, we are calling them devices. And I've been
cows?
corrected, because I was calling them computers. So they are, but will they always be the same? So what we're trying to do is say, no matter what the device is that we're giving kids to be able to experience a
But-
one-to-one environment.
My experience around the education industry is that a mobile device can be a smartphone, it can be a tablet,
Right,
it can be a
iPad,
laptop. it can be-
Right, anything.
So I
Mobile
think,
laptops, mobile.
We just say
Just
laptops.
add on the bring your own
It's
device.
up to you.
So we could almost put number of mobile labs and then put 3 parentheses,
Bring your own
the
device.
number of
I just think
laptops
maybe
or something.
mobile laptops, because people will know what that is, a laptop that can be moved around the building.
yeah, that's fine.
I think that
that's a
would
little
be
better.
good, yeah.
And then the last one, again, take it or leave it. This one's a little crazy, maybe. The title of our of our report card that we've done every year for how many now? 5? 4?
This is our 4th.
I wonder, what if we called it our public report card? Foxborough Public Schools Public Report Card.
Well, I like the idea of thinking of a different name, because the Department of Ed calls the district
Yes,
report
yes,
cards this, and so
yes.
there's starting to be some name confusion.
I was
So I
confused.
like that idea, because you're gonna get a letter about the district report card, which is the Department of Ed, so we've been trying to be careful about putting DESE, district report card, which isn't this one, so public report card,
Or community report card.
community.
Is it a report card or is it a report?
Yeah,
Community report.
yeah, that's it.
I
Foxborough
like
Community?
Yeah, I do too.
Because that's been bothering me, trying to say, no, that's letter isn't about that, that's
Community
about the.
report.
Community, Foxborough Public Schools, it says on the logo, Community Report, January.
Good work, team. Okay, great job, Amy and Debbie. Really appreciate that we do that above and beyond the call of duty. I really think it's helpful to the public. And if,
I agree. That's great.
and we disseminate it, as you said, to every post office address in the town.
Yes.
Do we have stacks of them at the schools or anything like
We
that?
have some extra that we can give, we leave out for people to take as they come in,
I
so
mean,
if
I
they
don't want
come
to kill
in
more
to
trees, but
register, the student, so we get about 100 maybe extra,
okay, that's fine.
about 100 extra for handouts. And we still have a few from last year if people want to see it. But in general, that's really pretty well. We give out some out to the schools so they can leave it out
Yeah.
for pickup, and we
Yeah.
keep some in the central office, and that's been pretty helpful
Okay.
to do.
Any other comments or thoughts? Acceptance of donations.
We have 5 donations for you. This is a banner evening. So I will start with, I'll tell you what they are. You have some in your, I don't think, they don't get them in the package, just I do, right?
Yeah, we got them.
We have
Oh, you
them.
do?
We
Okay.
have them, yep.
All right, so the first is, and you can either motion and accept them all together, or you can do one by one. Do you have a preference?
Nope.
Okay, so the first one is from the Partners in Patriotism Fund.
Let's do them one at a time.
Okay, and that is a donation of $1,500 to the high school for the Credit Fair for Life. So I'm very pleased for Ellen Pillsbury and her team, because as you know, this is our first year without being a member of the Attleboro Area School to Career Partnership. And one of the things that we wanted to do was create our own credit fair for life, so that we could have the maximum number of our own students participate. And Ellen has so many networks and partnerships of her own that we are building our own credit fair for life. And so the Partners in Patriotism very generously are supporting that effort with their donation of $1,500 to Foxborough High School Credit Fair for Life.
I approve to accept the check from Partners in Patriotism.
Motion to approve? $1,500 donation?
$1,500 donation.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
With gratitude.
With gratitude.
Gratitude.
Yes.
Everything's with
Wonderful. We have
gratitude.
very generous partners. On a similar account, the Rotary Club of Foxborough, a very generous partner to us, I have to say, once again is donating to Foxborough High School School to Career efforts, which they've done before, but again, specifically along the same lines for the Credit Fair for Life, and they are donating $500 to the Foxborough High School School to Career efforts, which, as you know, I've already said, run by Mrs. Pillsbury. So a very generous donation, and they're pretty good to us all the time.
I'll move that we accept the Rotary Club's donation of $500 for the Credit Fair for Life with gratitude.
I'll second that with gratitude.
Is that Credit Fair for Life?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All those in favor?
I'll abstain. I know some people over there, so with
Okay.
gratitude, I abstain.
401, thank you.
Along the same note, so I'm calling this the Ellen Pillsbury Seek and They Shall Donate
Yes.
night. JED Insurance and Financial Service Agency on Mechanic Street here in Foxborough has generously donated $100 to the Foxborough Credit Fair for Life.
I move to accept the check from Jet Insurance for the Credit Fair for Life. How much was it?
$100.
For $100.
Second. With
All those in
gratitude.
favor? 5-0 with gratitude. Thank you.
Can't wait to talk to Ellen tomorrow. She's always got something coming.
She'll be thrilled.
Then, so that's 3. Did I say 5?
You get that one, right?
Yeah, I've got that one left, but I'm thinking why I thought 5.
That's all I saw.
Yeah,
All right,
the
let me
Blair,
look.
the Blair.
Yep, that's coming.
Oh, I see, right, that's it. 1, 2, 3. Oh, yes, I do have 5. The fourth one, then I'll get to the last one. The fourth one is the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce through Kara Griffin, the executive director, who I do plan to call tomorrow to follow up with her. But let's see. So the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce specifically was raising funds for STEM initiatives in their member communities, which are Foxborough, Mansfield, and Norton. And so their fundraising yielded quite a great take, and they have generously donated to each of their communities, Foxborough being one, $774.85 earmarked for the Foxborough Public Schools initiatives related to STEM. So they're leaving it up to us to decide how we want to spend that money. So when I speak to Kara tomorrow, that what we're thinking about right now is that's how we would support the robotics portion of the new Exploring Computer Science course. We need to know a little bit more about that afterwards, but that's our first thought. I'm not saying 100% that that's what it would be. And I think that the Tri-Town is an organization that we've been involved in some, and some years more than others. But in particular, Kara's been very supportive of the school, so I think it would be great if we could invite them to another school committee meeting, and they would like to have the mock check and do the whole thing, and maybe by then
That'd
we
be
know a
great.
little bit more.
Great.
So if that's okay, you could accept it tonight, and I'll reach out to her tomorrow and see if we
We
can do that.
accepted that one at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's why you have the thank you note. That's right. So I just
But
wanted
we'd
to
love to
tell
have
you
them
that.
come to a meeting.
That's why I put it back in my packet, because I wanted to follow up that I still don't know exactly what it's for. Okay. And last but not least, this is a wonderful note. So this is to accept a donation of $155 for the Sam Burns Community Fields initiative, the concession stand. And I think this just really, I love this note because I think it really speaks to Foxborough as a community. So it is from Kelly and Peter Blair, who live here in Foxborough, children locally. And this is what the note said this month. Hello, enclosed, please find a donation from the Ahern 8th grade Christmas Elves, a group of girls who got together to raise funds to shop for Christmas gifts for the girls at the Italian Home for Children in Jamaica Plain, which happens to be somewhere that my husband and I have donated to over the years. This year, we were blessed with a surplus, and the girls voted to donate the balance to the Sam Burns Community Field.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
we're raising, this community, you parents are raising some pretty wonderful kids. So I would be happy if there was a motion to accept $155 from the grade 8 Elves Girls Group.
I would be happy to make that motion.
And I'd like to second it.
All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you to Kelly Blair and the 8th grade Christmas Elves.
How sweet.
Incidentally, I think it's the second year the girls have done this project, and they've just they're just a wonderful group of kids. So.
Isn't that wonderful? So that's the end of the donations.
Okay, other matters.
Few.
Sorry, we're out of time.
I'm going to be really fast. We have a total, this on Wednesday evening, if you're free, at 7 o'clock. The World Language National Honor Society induction ceremony will take place in the Foxborough High School auditorium. There will be a total of 19 students inducted into the American Sign Language Honor Society, 4 into the French Honor Society, and 18 into the Spanish Honor Society. So we have some outstanding achievement in the world language.
Wednesday at 7?
7 o'clock in the
That's here?
auditorium. Okay. So that's great. 30 students, do a little Vanna White, 30 students were named to the 2016 Southeastern District Music Festival.
Yes.
And competed there this past weekend. And the Ahern Winter Carnival on Saturday, this past Saturday, was wonderful. Saw Tina there. Good time was had by all, I will say. And then the last thing is something I actually I put in your packet that we received a letter from Representative Barrows. And, you know, there's so many different school ratings, and there are many organizations that try to rate schools and districts. There are many. And sometimes you go online to the link, and who knows who's actually doing the statistics, and sometimes it's based on one data point, and they'll rank you based on whatever. It could be anything. And so some of them, as you know, sometimes I look and I don't know what it means, but I'll tell you that this one in particular I hadn't heard of before, but it certainly has gotten out there as something that's public. I've heard more about this particular one than others. So I included State Representative Jay Barrows' letter to me and to you that says, I'm writing today to congratulate and to thank you for your leadership and guidance, as well as your entire staff in the Foxborough Public School System for the efforts in earning the ranking of 46th in the recent niche public school district rankings. It's important also to recognize the bright and inspired students and their parents for creating a community that cultivates educational success. This is a tremendous achievement by the dedicated and diligent members of the Foxborough School System. I want to offer my congratulations and appreciation for all of the successes that you and the community have been recognized for. So I think it was great for Representative Barrows to take the time to reach out to that, but I've also heard from other people in the community who have seen it. And the reason that this sort of stands out for us a little bit is because they do take multiple data points into consideration, which you hope most people attempting to rank for whatever purposes do. But one of the things that I think made this a little bit different is a lot of the rankings are based on commentary. People who took the time to go on and talk about the public school district and rate them on such things as the quality of the education and the teachers, the diversity. And we're not that diverse, so you'll see that might have been something we didn't quite get the A for. But also things like extracurriculars, athletics, culture and climate, so things that matter to people, and they included perception rankings with how people feel and are saying about the schools. So it certainly, to me, made it more interesting to go on and look at, and since I have heard from more people in the public about it, so it's 45th in Massachusetts school districts, which was great. So I never know sometimes what the significance is of these various rankings, or whether they even mean anything, or whether they're even statistically researched, but that one was a little bit more interesting than some, and people seem to have taken a liking to it more than some others, so thought I'd mention that.
The comments were, I saw the survey, and I went and read all the comments that followed it. There were a number of former students who had really interesting and positive things to say about different aspects of the school system.
Yeah, I know I
So-
have it in here somewhere, so if people want to know more about it.
It was,
I'll
it
figure- oh,
was
here it
very
is, right here.
interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I knew I had it.
It was out on the
Right.
patch.
It was on the patch, and people said things like, there's always something to do
Yeah.
in terms of extracurriculars. They did mention staff IDs would have given us a higher rating in health and safety, which is
Which we're
something that
headed to
we're
discuss.
actively about to close out on. In other health and safety, there was, the comment that they highlighted said, there's no fights and very little bullying. The teachers care and do a good job preparing students for college. So I did the same thing as I read the
Yeah.
comments, and that mattered. That mattered more to me maybe than the numerical rank, which I'm
Yep.
never sure what it means.
Yep.
So, that's what I have.
Great. Tina?
Well, Debbie mentioned the Southeastern District Music Festival, and I just wanted to mention that at the FMA meeting last week, Mr. Massey made a point of telling us parents that our own Mikel Hernandez got a third-place award for the Southeast District in the composition contest. So she was there as a musician, but she also got a special award. I wish she were here so we could congratulate her, but he made a point of telling us it was a very significant award. So congratulations
Wait till I
to
see
Mikel.
her.
So that's it.
Great.
That's for me.
She's an outstanding student.
Abby?
There is a winter contest, concert, I believe, on Thursday.
night.
Is that at 7 also?
I believe they all start at
so, yeah.
7.
7,
But
right.
I don't want to say 100%.
Yeah, I was
It's on the
told,
school
I was
calendar,
told
though.
my daughter needs to be there by 6:15, so she can be on at 7, so it's,
Yes, that sounds about
it's
right.
7.
Thanks.
Another place to drive a kid, you know. It's fun.
Anything
You'll
else?
miss
Well,
it. Trust me, you'll
Wait,
miss
wait
it.
till they're driving on their own
gonna
and
say,
see
he
how
will
your
miss it.
worries.
He will miss it.
Yeah.
Bevy, anything else?
That's it.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you all again.
Amy?
Thank you for my well
Just a
wishes.
reminder that we have our district professional development day on Friday.
Good point.
So there is no school for students on Friday, and we have a great day planned.
Great. What are you doing?
We are continuing with our work on social emotional learning for students and looking at how trauma impacts learning, and it's not trauma as what people might think of as far as trauma. We're also looking at technology choices based on our survey and really looking at the needs of our teachers and what they have said where they need more support in integrating technology into the curriculum. So there's been a lot of choice at the secondary level that's there. And then at the primary level, the other half of the day is looking at writing.
Oh, good. Good. Okay, is that it? Janet, anything we forgot?
Thank you.
You got the form you needed from me? I stuck over there.
I certainly do.
Thank you. Bill?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Marilyn?
Unless something's changed, the DECA competition, the first DECA competition will be on Thursday, unless something's changed.
This Thursday?
I have that written down. And the blacklight dance was rescheduled for Saturday night for the high school. And the basketball team,
This Saturday or 2 weeks?
this Saturday.
No,
The 6th.
Oh, it's the 6th?
February 6th.
It's 2 weeks. The announcement
Oh,
said.
that's good. I was wondering
2
why they did
weeks.
it on a long weekend. I thought that was a little strange they did it on.
It says February, Diana's thing said
That was-
February 6th.
okay.
So
Saturday
it's
the
2 weeks.
Mea culpa.
Let's just hope there's better weather then.
Yes.
Who knows?
And the basketball team, the high school, there's gonna be a whole bunch of high school basketball teams competing at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence on Sunday. And our team is playing East Bridgewater, I believe it is, at 10 o'clock, the 10 to 11 game or 10 to whatever time.
If you want tickets, you can call the high school or the athletic department.
They're gone, and there's some parents that still have some, but it's actually cheaper than going through Ticketmaster. You just get them the day off, and most people aren't going to be there for that first game because it's an all-day thing. And they're $12, they're $15 instead of the 12 if you can't find any parents. And otherwise, it's like 20-something with Ticketmaster. So you're better off going to the door that day.
10 to 11 on Sunday.
10 to 11, 11:30, whatever, however long a basketball game is. They're the first game of the whole day of a whole bunch of high school teams playing.
Great. Anything else, Marilyn?
That's all I have to say.
Mr. Uden?
Just a little business for the board and for the town. It's paper pulling time for re-election, and I'd just like to make a quick formal announcement to the town that I'm choosing with my family to not run for re-election for this seat for this next year, and just want to get it out there so people can have a good, clean, fair election and get the message out there for the town to keep moving forward with a great board. Thank you. I'm Steve Uden, and I approve this message.
He's going to be one of those sneaky people who pulls the presidential.
Yeah. Well, when Steve called
Him
me
and Blanc.
a few days ago to let me in on his decision, as he was going on, I was thinking about all the ways I was going to respond. Say, you can't leave. No, you can't. No, we need you. You're a good voice. You bring a lot.
Personal decision, yeah.
And then I asked, but before I did, I said, so why? And he said it was for family and and I said, geez, how can I?
You can't.
That's the one thing
You
I
can't
couldn't.
touch that one, Bruce.
Couldn't argue about. So, Steve, I just want to say publicly that I'm sorry that you'll be leaving the board. I think you're a great town official and a great town volunteer. And
I'm staying to the bitter end, so
Well, and
reserve your comments
you're-
until they take my hand off the Bible
but
or
even
whatever.
I think you bring fresh perspective. But I think even the thoughtfulness of announcing this now, so people who might be interested in serving on the school committee can give it some thought. I think even that is a nice touch. So.
I love this board. Thank you.
I have a few thoughts,
Thank
but I'll
you.
reserve them
Okay.
for later because let's see.
Okay.
It's been a great voice, great.
Thank you.
Only other matter.
He's still around, he's
not going anywhere.
We know where he is.
Yeah.
Still time
Know how
for
to
a
find 'em.
recall.
Still not a fine.
The only other matter I had was we're scheduled to have a meeting Monday night. This is our back-to-back, and Debbie and I chatted. We don't have a lot on the agenda for Monday night. We got through a lot in a record amount of time, record pace tonight. So I'm inclined to cancel next Monday's meeting unless anyone on the committee can think of a reason not to do so.
I would not object.
I guess my only concern is that, and I had mentioned this to you earlier, is
Yep.
that the policy that's hanging out there, I would like to bring it into compliance as soon as possible. I know that we're following the letter of the law anyway, but in the event, I would love a night off as much as anybody else, believe me, but in the event something were to transpire, I would personally feel better if we were to bring our policies into compliance, but it's something to think about.
I think
It's only 2 more
Well,
weeks.
no, it's not,
I
because of
think-
February vacation, we won't meet again until February 22nd, so it's 3 weeks.
It's 2 weeks, so, of school, of school. Because.
Well, yeah, there's
anyway.
vacation, but
How many
I can
do
see
we need
that.
to vote
I think that's a
in?
valid point. I think that
What's
from my
quorum? All of
perspective.
us?
I'm sorry.
I'll be
From
quiet,
my
I'm sorry.
perspective, as we discussed, the state law trumps the policy, so believe it or not, there are many, many towns in the Commonwealth who haven't gotten to revise their policy, but you guys are always sort of on time or right along with it. But I think that the law always trumps your local policy anyway, so we have been in compliance with the new law and are already now, and the training has already occurred.
Yeah, I
So I
misunderstood.
don't share
official.
the same,
Right.
that same concern that something could go wrong because we're already following the law and the law trumps anyway.
Okay.
So if it were a different type of policy, maybe not superseded by the law.
Right.
That seemed urgent, I might feel differently, as you, I would agree, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But on this one, I think we're okay.
Okay. If you say so. I'm a T crosser and an I
think
daughter, so.
So the next meeting wouldn't be until February 22nd. Was that correct, if we skip next week?
Yes.
Right after vacation, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Well, that would be the night before the town meeting,
Correct.
That's correct.
the town hall.
Ooh.
Special
Jill,
town
you
meeting.
know, every meeting you remind me of something, so while we're thinking, while we're
And the
all
credit
ruminating
fair's
on
coming
this.
up that week.
The superintendent's evening coffee for February is scheduled for Tuesday, the 23rd, and as Joe pointed out to me,
you
there's a
can't.
conflict, or actually a parent did too, so I'm not going to be holding the coffee, and I'll be sending out an email this week to General saying another date that I'm trying to reschedule.
That's a special town meeting?
That's the special town meeting
Town hall, they want to rip down.
is on Tuesday, the 23rd, so.
And I hope it gets voted in.
So, yes, so we'd have school committee Monday night, and then the special town meeting is Tuesday of that week.
Okay.
Okay. So no meeting next Monday, and if we need to get back together between now and what's scheduled to be the next meeting after that, we can always just post something. But
Good.
okay. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second the motion?
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Feel better.